We used to always start class with current events, and I've kind of realized over the last just even week that's really part of how I process events is talking about it with students. That's been gone for the last week or so. So just thinking about some things going on right now, obviously all related to what's going on with the coronavirus. But the biggest thing we were talking about before coronavirus were the Democratic primaries, which still went on. There were more primaries yesterday, and Biden swept them all. So seems pretty clear that's over. Bernie is reassessing his campaign. There are no primaries for 3 weeks, but even under normal circumstances, I think he'd be in a lot of pressure to drop out to try to rally the party behind Biden. With what's going on, it's just hard to see how he keeps his campaign going, how he can justify people gathering for these primaries. Biden's delegate lead is almost insurmountable at this point. So, Paul Begala said this morning, Bernie needs to change his focus from the battle to the war. And I think this battle's over for him. But on the other hand, it will be interesting because he's still in the Senate, and I think he's got a lot of argument for his agenda and what he's been talking about. What's been going on with coronavirus has obviously exposed dramatic flaws in our social safety net. Look, the government's talking about right now giving everyone money to keep things going, to talk about, $1,000, $2,000. Andrew Yang's on all the talk shows like, I told you so. I told you this is what we should be doing. It does seem like we could be headed towards some kind of universal basic income over the next couple months. The impact this is going to have on the economy, it's unprecedented. In the briefing that just ended, they brought up the Great Depression. They brought up unemployment numbers of 20% of this heading potentially in that direction. So you're going to see, the government take huge, unprecedented steps in the coming days, weeks, and months. This connects with what we talked a lot about in class, especially in APUSH, is what's the role of the federal government and what's the role of the federal government during times of economic crisis. We saw in the New Deal, for example, really how conservative it was at first, how inconsistent it was, that even in the heights of the Great Depression, there was a hesitancy to run deficits. And then we look at those numbers in World War II, and you went from running deficits, really $30, $40 billion to a consistent $250, $300 billion. Bonus points, if you remember the economists we talked about who had this idea that, during times of economic crisis, you don't worry about debt, you don't worry about deficits, you just do what you have to do. And that's what you're going to see from the federal government over the coming months, however long this takes, is that they're going to do what needs to be done to keep this economy afloat and to try to get through all of this. And when you think about sort of the election of 2020 coming up, it looks like it'll be Trump versus Biden at this point. It's hard to see how it doesn't work out that way. It seems like it'll be an election on one issue, and that it will become a referendum on how people feel about how President Trump has handled this and how he continues to handle this. I imagine watching a debate between these two guys. I don't really want to hear anything else at this point if this is still going on. And they'll certainly talk about other things. It's going to be a bizarre campaign in that they won't be able to have any rallies. I think you're noticing that former Vice President Biden is giving presidential-like speeches a couple times a week. I think this plays in well from a political standpoint for Biden as far as what his campaign strengths are. He's not very good at spontaneity, and when he gets going off the script at his rallies, he said some things that are odd. So, just from a cold, hard political standpoint, as far as the campaign, I think, President Trump's rallies seem to be one of his strengths. He won't be able to have those for the foreseeable future. So it's going to be a very interesting presidential election moving forward that you'd have to think will go on no matter what. Who knows about anything, right? But if you think about, there was a presidential election in 1864 in the middle of the Civil War. There were presidential elections in 1940 and 1944 during the Great Depression and World War II. There were midterm elections during 1918 with the Spanish flu, that pandemic. So, You have to think they're going to continue to, they're going to have this election moving forward. It's hard to see that not happening, but anything is possible. I mean, might it get delayed? We'll see. So we'll keep an eye on these things. Things are changing by the minute, by the hour. So I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to post some things, content specific, to try to help you through the reading we're supposed to be doing. I think probably tomorrow I'll set it as a priority to try to figure out something where we can meet online, and we'll see what that looks like, and just take some small steps at first, I think, and just try to, get together, have a little discussion, set some small goals as far as what we might be able to do together online. So I'll talk to you soon.